Today we're doing something exciting. We are going to change the throwout bearing in the transmission, or I guess in front of the transmission, because as you heard, it sounds truly horrific. And I can't race it like that, and we have an event next weekend. So, it's also supposed to rain today, so we pulled the nose of it, at least, into the shop. And hopefully we can get all this done today, but we'll see. So, stay tuned for lots of cursing. Alright, the first thing we gotta do is take the shifter off. The shifter actual lever off so that we can get the transmission out of the bottom. So, this thing is clipped in here. I believe we just pull it up. And then we're gonna undo these bolts here, and then I think that's it, because then the handle doesn't get in the way of dropping the transmission out. Now I gotta jack up the rear so I can make room underneath so I can remove the drive shaft. Also, jacking up the rear means that I won't lose a bunch of fluid out of the transmission if it's somewhat level when I pull the drive shaft out. I did buy some transmission plugs, which are also supposed to help, so jam that sucker in there and it's supposed to prevent the transmission from leaking everywhere, which if you've met me is a problem that I have. I like to be extra secure on jack stands, so I'm going to take my other jack and stick it under the pumpkin. Now I need to remove the drive shaft. In order to get the drive shaft back on properly, I need to mark the corners of the drive shaft on both ends so that I can put it back on in the same orientation, which will ensure it's balanced appropriately when it goes back together. Alrighty, welcome to underneath the car. Let's see, where can I put you? Oh Christ, this is tighter than I expected, but as you can see, I need to get this in the same orientation as we left it. So I'm gonna put some tape on there. And then cut it right along the flange. Oh, that looks like shit, but it'll do, I guess. Oh, fuck. Maybe I'll grab that rag, which went somewhere. Clean this up a little bit first. Well, I got some counterweights here, right? Is there counterweights anywhere else? Nope. Oh, look at that. There's a yellow mark there. Why don't I just use the yellow mark? Because there's no yellow mark anywhere else. Okay, so the yellow mark is going to come straight down. That's how we're going to orient this thing. Cool. This thing does not come apart, does it? So I guess the bad news is the exhaust definitely doesn't come apart. Also, these are not 8-point, they are 16, so I didn't bring the appropriate tools. I actually do not have a ton of 16-point sockets, so I'm hoping one of these will do it. Alright, plan B. I might have some in the truck. Let's go check. Okay. So I need a 12mm shallow 16 point. I'm going to pause you while I search for a 12mm 18 point socket. Well, I found a socket and it fits on there, but with the wiggle socket on the end, or the flexible socket end bit, it doesn't fit. So now I'm just going to use a wrench and hope that the torque requirements aren't ridiculously high when I put it back on. You know, in hindsight, I might be an idiot. Because in hindsight, I've jacked up the rear end instead of using, like, my subframe connectors here. If I do that, it means that the shaft itself should move out of my way because the rear end will drop, and it obviously has a fixed point in the front. But then how do I get under here if there's a jack stand right here? I guess I'll have to just crawl under it completely. Right? Because if I can use my impact on this thing, it would be the best, because then it would be easy to get on and off. Assuming it's not rusted on there. Okay. New plan. I'm going to get the WD-40 and I'm going to soak these bolts, so while I fiddle around with the rear end, and I'm going to put the jack stands under here, hopefully it drops and I can get my impact on there, and by the time that happens, all the oil penetration has happened, so that I can hopefully get this off good and easy. So yeah, let's do that. Take that off. Shit. Yeah, still can't get that all the way on there without the little wiggly socket. It said, oh, put the parking brake off so you can turn the drive shaft. Yeah, but turning the drive shaft means not getting able to get the damn bolts off the drive shaft. So I'm gonna turn the parking brake back on for the moment. Well, I guess I'll get the big impact out, but the last time I had to use it, it didn't work very well. Alright, well, we sprayed these with WD-40. I'm gonna let them soak for a bit while I look for a solution that's better than this. Maybe the solution is go out and buy a different wiggle socket, because this one is a piece of shit. You probably could have seen on the video, it was the pin in the middle falls out, and the pin in the middle falls out in the middle of doing the impact, so I'm sure it's not doing as much torque as it's supposed to. And obviously that's a problem when you're trying to put impact into a bolt and not into the pin. So I will be back when I've figured out what I want to do. Alright, we've been to Home Depot, bought some paint pens, bought an appropriately sized socket for the 1/2 inch, and we're going to try and get this off again. And then I bought a secret weapon that I'm going to try not to open because it was expensive and I want to return it. But we'll see. Oh yeah, we bought this fancy light too. It's got a, instead of just a hanger like the old one, it's got a stand. So I can put it right underneath here and see what I'm doing. There we go. There we Now, where'd my new socket go? There it is. Right. Now, breaker bar. Let's make sure this thing fits, I guess. Fuck. It does, just. Shit. Okay. Plan A, not gonna work. Plan B, bought a new 3/8 wiggle socket. Okay. Plan B. Doesn't really work. Alright everyone, here's the secret weapon. I said when I bought that impact, it's going to do 90% of everything I need it to do. This does the other 10%. It's 750 foot-pounds of torque, whereas the other one does 100, 120. And it says its peak torque output is 1100. So I'm gonna take the old headphones here, put them on, and give it a whirl. And if this doesn't work, I don't know what will. Oh, this thing's heavy too. Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Oh, this thing is like hot as fuck now. Shit. Okay, I'm gonna turn the camera off. I'll be right back. Well, okay. Last resort was use that impact without breaking another tool. Put a big old extension on it, because that's what they did in the LMR video. And it seemed to work just freaking fine. Easy peasy even. So I'm gonna take the parking brake off and twist the drive shaft around and get this thing out. Okay. Now we're gonna this off, slide. Oh, actually, babe, Chloe, yeah. Will you get me the oil drip thing, just so I don't drip a little oil onto the floor? The drip pan, yeah. It should be over here somewhere. Thank you. Okay. Now, let's put the camera over here. We're going to take one of these plugs that I bought, stick it in the tail shaft. That way, it doesn't leak everywhere when I try to wrestle the damn thing out. Oh, that one's too big. That one That'll do. I think. Okay. Now that we've just barely started, now I'm exhausted. Okay. To take the transmission out, the first thing I need to do is take these two bolts out, which go to the cross member. And then I need to take out this bolt, and then there's two on the top side here, and over here somewhere, right here. And then the whole thing should lift up out of the cradle here. Actually, I also need to undo the speedo gear and a couple of electrical things like this is attached. But yeah, I need to undo those four, then the whole transmission comes out, and then I need to undo all the bolts around the and then I need to take the starter out. Do I need to take the starter out? Yes, I do, because the bolts go through the bell housing. Take the bell housing out, take the clutch cable out. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Let's get started. Alright, let's see if we can get you a better view. So I've taken this connector out of here. And then this, I'm not sure what the sensor is, but it's some sensor. It goes up there like so. We're going to take out, I believe this one is the speedo cable. And I mean, it might be easier to take out these big guys. All this crap is just completely covered in oil. So I don't know. These ones are less caked in oil, so in theory they're easier to get off. Okay. I'm going to take a quick break, grab some tools, and we'll get started on this. So I consulted the internet. And unfortunately, the internet says I should remove my exhaust so that I can undo the cross member and just pull it straight back and drop the whole thing down. But as you can see, the exhaust is all one piece welded together, and you know, has these nice kinks and all kinds of shit. So I am at a bit of a loss at what I should do, because taking this exhaust off is gonna be nearly impossible. And it does dumps in the back, but it does it after the rear end. So I wonder, let's go to the back and do some exploring. If I cut them here at the muffler, I could do really short dumps right here and just blow it down here. I don't know if that's going to have any negative impacts, because it's going to be blowing lots of heat around this area, which obviously we don't want this differential fluid to heat up a ton, because that would be bad. Alright, I'm going to have a quick think and consult Chloe and see if we can't figure this freaking thing out. Alright, I've consulted the internet, and I think that we're gonna cut this off and essentially create a mid-pipe. I think, well, I did some research, and there are these wide clamps that are supposed to not leak exhaust, and they're supposed to be good. So I think right here at the mufflers, certainly here, and here there's like, what is that, 5 or 6 inches
Yeah, so I'll cut this one here, and I'll cut this one about here. And unfortunately, I have to order the clamps from Amazon because we went to 3 stores and they didn't have them. But Amazon's got them, so I'll get them on Tuesday. But yeah, I think if I cut here, then if I unbolt the front, this whole thing should fall down, and I should be able to just slide it on out. So that is the current plan. I'm gonna use this duct tape so I can hopefully make a straight line, and I'm gonna use the Sawzall to take it off. I am a race car with custom exhaust, Dave. It'll be cool. It'll sound good. It won't be a pain in the ass at all. Okay, now if we unbolt the front, this now mid pipe should fall straight off. So maybe we should get a why don't we start loosening the bolts and not take them off yet, and then see how much of a pain in the butt this is going to be to come off. Oh, knock the camera over. Shite. Well, and now that we have taken the exhaust out and made ourselves a mid pipe, we now actually have access to the transmission. Let's inspect our speedo cable here. Making it dirty, but I'll clean it before I put it back in. It doesn't look damaged, so I'm not sure why the speedo keeps being weird. Well, maybe now it is because it's going to be dirty. I guess I'll just clean that off when I have a towel. I think... God, I'm sorry, you just keep looking at the top of my head. I think we're about ready to actually drop the transmission, which means this bolt over here, this bolt over here, those 4 bolts, and then the whole thing slides back and falls down. I think we're going to take a break, maybe get some food, certainly get some water, and then should be ready to take the transmission out. We've had some dinner. And now I'm going to try and get a bunch of these bolts out before it gets too late and too dark, because it's already a little late. But, yeah, ideally, we'll get this transmission out, and then we'll do the bell housing tomorrow. But we've now broken loose all of the nuts. Now, do I want to try and physically pull this thing out tonight? Or do I want to try to tackle that first thing in the morning and try putting it back together tomorrow? Well, I guess we're not done yet, because this just takes the transmission off. We then have to remove the bell housing, which is where the clutch fork and the throwout bearing and the clutch and all that fun stuff is actually. But after we take the transmission out, in theory, it's easier to get to the, I don't know, 6 or 8 bolts that are all around this thing. Okay, I'm definitely gonna do this tomorrow. So we'll pick this up tomorrow and pull this out and start pulling the bell housing off.